It's been a while since I made a cartoon video, so let's do another Arthur episode comparison, where we have two plots that are similar to each other, but one handles their message better than the other. Our first episode begins with Arthur and DW watching a documentary about ancient Egyptian mummies, because learning is fun. The two then talk about what kind of treasure they'd want to be buried with, which gives DW an excuse to rant about her damn snowball again.
I had a snowball, but somehow it disappeared.
That won't even happen for another 3,448 years.
Yeah, so shut it, you brat. The cold open ends with the pair napping like mummies in the dead, which is actually kind of funny and cute. At Grandma Thora's house, DW is having fun looking through Thora's belongings, and has a particular liking for Grandma's beloved porcelain doll Clarissa. As DW's mom arrives to pick her up, Thora lets DW take Clarissa home for a while.
I know you'll treat Clarissa like the treasure she is.
Irony. Don't you love it? As you could probably guess, DW doesn't exactly treat this antique doll the way most people would treat it. But before we continue with this story, let's take a look at another episode where DW is given something important in her care. This season 20 episode opens with DW's regularly scheduled fat-shaming of Arthur. This all ties into an explanation of how sometimes there are things you can do yourself, while some things require the help of others.
What's 8 times 9?
273.
200 and... Wait, what? That's not right.
Well, if you're so smart, then why don't you give us the answer? At preschool, DW is excited to take her the class buddy Larry for vacation week, while the Tibble twin says he's going to fail miserably at caring for him, which sounds like the part called the kettle black. And already, I'm having some issues with the episode. It's one thing to have a class pet, but it's another thing to let it be periodically taken to students' homes. That might have been something that was done in the past. I feel like now people would be more hesitant to let a live animal go to a brand new environment for an extended period of time, especially one that's as easily stressed as a rabbit. Anyways, Arthur lectures DW on the responsibility of taking care of a rabbit, to which he tells him to shut the hell up. He then proves her right when he suggests giving Larry a carrot, which is indeed unwise to give to rabbits outside of an occasional treat.
Do you remember Hop Along Bunny, DW? That was your favorite book once upon a time.
Hey, wait a minute. I clearly remember that book being called Hop Along the Frog, and she obsessed over getting her library card because of it. What kind of fool do you take me for, show? As Mrs. Reed reads the book to her daughter, DW laments the fact that Larry is cooped up in his cage. Well, that foreshadows trouble if I've ever seen it. For now, though, let's get back to Clarissa. Throughout the days of DW's care, Clarissa hasn't exactly been treated delicately. At the library, DW watches Ratbird's puppet performance of Rapunzel, and is especially excited about seeing the titular character fall out of the tower and break her neck. Still, I guess it is less traumatizing than Rapunzel getting pregnant with twins, and the prince being blind by falling into a patch of thorns. At home, DW's jumping on the bed with Clarissa on it, which ends with the poor doll's face breaking. In other words, Clarissa is cracked.
DW, what have you been doing to this doll?
She's been taking that thing literally everywhere, and you only just now noticed how beat up it's become? DW doesn't quite grasp the importance of Clarissa, so her parents give her a family history lesson. Once upon a time, Thora was a little girl during the Great Depression era with 3 brothers. And since this is the first and only time we've heard of them, I can only assume that all 3 of them are dead now.
May I go across the street and look in the toy store window?
Why, of course, Thora dear.
Mom let her go by herself?
Things were different then, DW.
I would say this is hypocritical of Mr. Reed, considering he lets Arthur go around town by himself, even in this episode. But to be fair, he's never let DW go out on her own, the same age that Thora would do so. Still don't think Arthur should be given free rein and put in charge of DW, but whatever. Back in the day, Thora didn't have any toys of her own, and had to rely on borrowing her brother's hand-me-downs. Then, for her 5th birthday, she's gifted Clarissa, and we get a montage of her playing with it just like DW, but much more carefully. After hearing all of this, DW is racked with guilt, so her parents try to help her find a doll doctor. Unfortunately, there are no appointments available, and Grandma Thora is making a last-minute visit for dinner. That's when Arthur saves the day and finds Mr. Ratbird, who is more than happy to fix her up in the limited time that they have. Best teacher ever. A few hours later, and Clarissa is good as new, and Thora is none the wiser. As Arthur runs out of the living room to show her his A-plus report, like a nerd, DW breaks down and confesses that she broke Clarissa, a car repaired by Mr. Rapper. Thor, however, is not angry with her granddaughter. It explains that Clarissa had actually had her fair share of accidents in the past, and also needed repairs. In fact, Thor is proud of DW for not only telling the truth, but also getting her fixed when the doll broke. We then get a happy ending of Clarissa now taking permanent residence in DW's home. Overall, I quite like this episode. For one, it shows that taking responsibility not only means fixing the problems you've caused, but also holding yourself accountable for your actions. DW probably could have gone away with not saying anything, but the show demonstrates that telling the whole story was the right thing to do. Not everything might be as easily remedied as in this situation, but even if they are, it's still important to admit when you're at fault. Another thing that I liked is how it showed the generational differences between how a child sees treating a toy as a treasure. Modern kids see toys as things to be played with, which is indeed oftentimes the case. And even kids who are generally pretty good at taking care of their belongings don't always keep their toys in pristine condition. That's not a bad thing, mind you. That's just kids being kids, and their way of showing that they love their toys. In Grandma Thor's day, however, it's a different story. Toys weren't as easily and quickly made as they are today, and for what appears to be a middle-class family during the Depression, I can understand why they'd be hesitant to spend the money on a well-made porcelain doll. That's why when Thor does receive Clarissa, we're shown that he treats her very carefully, aka like a treasure. And that's the story of how Clarissa got cracked, and then fixed. Now let's see what happens when DW encounters some money trouble. DW decides to take Larry outside by putting Pal's oversized collar and leash on the rabbit, even though Larry is already wearing a collar. It's could have easily just attached a leash to that. I know she's only 4, but come on! Predictably, Larry slips away, and Arthur runs out to assist DW in the search.
You lost Pal!
Yeah, don't remind me. After having no luck on finding Larry, Arthur recruits the help of LaDonna and Bud, because of course they had to be here. Though to be fair, I suppose there's no one better to help find a rabbit than 2 evolutionarily advanced rabbits. It turns out Larry found his way to the Tibble's backyard, and barely makes it back to the Reeds alive. He's successfully caught, and it turns out Bud bored DW to sleep. She then has a nightmare of Larry running away, only to wake up and think the whole incident was just a dream. I guess Bud's boring storytelling also has a side effect of giving someone amnesia. She then gets a phone call from the Tibble twins to taunt her, and she tells them to fuck off. It all ends with Arthur feeding Larry a piece of carrot, to which DW admits that maybe he does know a thing or two about rabbits. Except not really, because carrots still should be part of a rabbit's regular diet. And this ending shows how the episode dropped the ball on its moral. Not only do we get a pretty dumb it was just a dream but not really ending, but DW doesn't take any kind of accountability for a mistake. We don't even get to see Arthur and his friend's efforts going acknowledged by anyone else. Maybe it's meant to be a virtue is its own reward kind of deal, but it just comes off as you don't need to take responsibility for your screw-ups so long as someone else fixes them for you. I know the caring for an inanimate object versus a live animal aren't a one-to-one comparison, but taking accountability is something that's important no matter the circumstances. I think it would have been better if this episode had a similar ending to the Clarissa one, where the teacher praises DW for taking care of Larry, only for her to confess that she lost and found him. Then the teacher could tell her that even she lost track of Larry once or twice, because animals are unpredictable, and even the best of us make mistakes sometimes. We could even get to see the Tibble twins eat a healthy serving of crow. Maybe it would have been a repeat of the Clarissa episode, but at least we'd still have a solid enough moral. And that's not even getting into the whole issue of letting a kid take home a live animal in the first place. It's a particular point of contention for me, because the writers of Arthur usually try to keep up with the times to relate to the current era of their audience, and the whole letting kids take home the class pet seems a bit outdated. Even with that in mind, though, we still could have had this episode with DW going to her teacher's house to care for Larry instead. In conclusion, don't let DW take care of things twice, because it won't end nice. In fact, it'll probably just end even worse. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.